Hey guys, welcome back. So today we'll be converting fractions to percents using three different methods. So let's look at method number one. So let's say we have the example 1/4. For method number one, you can turn your fraction into a decimal and then move over two decimal places to the right or multiply by 100. So for this example here, we're going to turn it into a decimal. So I'm going to put my 4 on the outside and then my 1 is going to be on the inside. 4 goes into 1, it doesn't go. I'm going to add my decimal here, decimal, and then a 0. 4 goes into 10 now. How many times? It goes in 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. 10 minus 8 is going to equal 2. I'm going to bring down my 0. 4 goes into 25 times. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 is going to equal 0. So as a decimal, we have 0.25. So if I wanted to convert 0.25 as a percentage, I'm going to move over two decimal places to the right or just multiply by 100. We're going to go 1, 2, and my decimal is right there, which is 25. So your percentage is going to be 25%. Let's look at method number two. Method number two is to use a proportion. So we're going to look at the same example, 1/4, and I'm going to set this up as a proportion, and then we're going to solve for x. And anytime you're solving for a proportion when it comes to percentages, just remember percent means per 100. So if I do x over 100, because we are looking for percentages, I need to solve for x. So if I set up my proportion, we have 1/4 equals x over 100. So I'm going to cross multiply. We do 1 times 100 and then 4 times x. So I'm going to do 1 times 100 equals 4 times x. 1 times 100 is 100 equals 4 times x, which is going to give us 4x. Now I'm going to divide by 4. So 100 divided by 4, I have my 4 on the outside, 100 on the inside. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Bring my 0 down. 4 goes into 25 times. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 is going to equal 0. So x equals, so we have 25 here equals x. And if I were to turn this into a percentage, this is going to give you 25%. So the third method is to write an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100, and then you're going to write that fraction as a percentage. So method 3 is very similar to method number 2, except it's going to be just a little different. We're just going to tweak it just a little bit. So if I have the same example, 1/4, I need to multiply top and bottom by a number that's going to give me 100. Because remember, we're looking for percentages. We're looking for percent. Percent means per 100. 4 times a number is going to give me 100. That same number, whatever this number is, I need to multiply on top here, which is going to give us the answer here. Like I said, this is very similar to method number 2. So what number times 4 is going to give me 100? And that's going to be the number 25. 25 times 4 equals 100. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by 25 and my top by 25. So if I do 1 times 25, that's going to give me 25 here. And if I convert this into a percent, this is going to be 25%, because we're using this 25 here to give us the answer. And whenever you feel stuck, and if you feel like you're not sure what number times a number is going to give you 100, you can always divide. So remember, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So if you're not sure how to get this middle number here, you can always divide. You can divide 100 divided by 4. That's going to give you the 25 as well. So let's try the fraction 3/8. I have my 8 on the outside and my 3 is on the inside. 8 does not go into 3, so I do need to add decimal, decimal, and 0. 8 goes into 33 times. 8 times 3 is 24. 30 minus 24 is going to equal 6. I'm going to bring down my 0. 8 goes into 67 times. 8 times 7 is 56. 60 minus 56 is going to equal 4. I'm going to bring down a 0 again. 8 goes into 40 5 times. I'm going to bring my 5 up here. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 minus 40 is going to equal 0. So as a decimal, we have 0.375. And if I want to convert this to a percent, I'm going to move over 2 decimal places to the right or multiply by 100. So we have 1, 2. So as a percentage, you're going to get 37.5%. So let's look at method number 2, 3 over 8. We're going to set this up as a proportion. So we have 3 over 8 equals x over 100. Remember, if you're setting up as a proportion, this is the formula that you're using. You set up the fraction equals x over 100. Now we're going to cross multiply. So 3 times 100 and then 8 times x. 3 times 100 is 300. 8 times x is 8x. I'm going to divide both sides by 8 because we're solving for x. My 8s are going to cancel out here. So I have 8 on the outside. 300 is on the inside. 8 does not go into 3. It's too small. 8 goes into 30 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. 30 minus 24 is going to equal 6. I'm going to bring down this 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. 60 minus 56 is 4. 8 goes into 4 now. It doesn't go. It's too small. So I'm going to add a decimal, and then I'm going to add my 0 here. I'm going to bring down this 0. 8 now goes into 45 times. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 minus 40 is going to equal 0. 37.5 is what x equals. So as a percentage, this is going to be 37.5%. So let's look at method number 3. We have 3 over 8. All right, we said it's similar to method number 2. So we're going to do x, line, equals line, and then 100. Okay, so what number times 8 is going to give me 100? And remember, if you are not sure, you can always divide. You can always divide 100 divided by 8. That's going to give you the number that you're looking for. So what number times 8 is going to give me 100? And that's going to be 12.5. If I multiply 12.5 times 8, that's going to give me 100. I'm going to do the same thing on top here, 12.5. So now we're going to multiply my top number, 12.5 times 3. This is going to give us 37.5 in my numerator, and that's going to be 37.5%. So let's try the fraction 7 over 20. I'm going to turn this into a decimal. So we're going to do 20 on the outside, 7 is on the inside. 20 does not go into 7, it's too small. So I'm going to add decimal, 0. 20 goes into 70 now. How many times? It goes in 3 times. 20 times 3 is 60. 70 minus 60 is going to equal 10. I'm going to add my 0. 20 goes into 105 times. 20 times 5 is 100. 100 minus 100 is going to equal 0. As a decimal, we have 0.35. And if I'm converting into a percent, I'm going to move over 2 decimal places to the right. So we have 1, 2. It's right there, which is 35. So this is going to equal 35%. Method 2, if we do a proportion, so 7 over 20 equals x over 100. I'm going to cross multiply. So we have 7 times 100 and then 20 times x. So 7 times 100 equals 20 times x. 7 times 100 is 700 equals 20 times x is 20x. I'm going to divide both sides by 20. So we have 20 here and then 700 here. 20 goes into 70 3 times. 20 times 3 is 60. 70 minus 60 is 10. Bring down my 0. 20 goes into 105 times. 20 times 5 is 100. 100 minus 100 is 0. 700 divided by 20 is going to equal 35. So 35 equals x, which is going to be 35%. All right, so now let's look at method 3, 7 over 20. What number times 20 is going to give us 100? And that's going to be the number 5. If I multiply the bottom by 5, I'm going to multiply the top by 5. So 7 times 5, this is going to be 35. And 35 over 100, this is the 35%. So let's look at this example here, 3 over 20. I'm going to put my 20 on the outside, 3 is on the inside. 20 does not go into 3. I'm going to add decimal, decimal 0. 20 goes into 30 now one time. 20 times 1 is 20. 30 minus 20 is 10. 20 goes into 10, it doesn't go. So I'm going to add a 0, bring that down. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 20 times 5 is 100. 100 minus 100 is going to equal 0. As a decimal, we have 0.15. If I need to turn this into a percent, I'm going to move over 2 decimal places to the right or multiply by 100. So 1, 2, it's right here. That's going to be 15. So this is 15%. Let's look at method 2. 3 over 20 equals x over 100. We're going to cross multiply. So we have 3 times 100 equals 20 times x. 3 times 100, this is 300, equals 20x. Divide by 20, divide by 20. So x equals, let's see, we have 20 here, 300 here. 20 goes into 30 one time. 20 times 1 is 20. 30 minus 20 is 10. I'm going to bring down my 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 20 times 5 is 100. 100 minus 100 is 0. So x equals 15, which is here, and this is your 15%. Let's look at method 3, 3 over 20. What number times 20 is going to give me 100? And that's going to be the number 5. So 5 on the bottom and 5 on top. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 over 100, this is going to give us the 15%. Let's look at this example, 3 over 40. I'm going to turn it into a decimal. So 40 divided by 3. 40 does not go into 3. So I'm going to add decimal, decimal, and 0. 40 goes into 30. Nope, doesn't go. I'm going to add a 0 here. What about 40 goes into 300 now? 40 goes into 300 7 times. 40 times 7 is going to give us 280. 300 minus 280, this is going to give us 20. I'm going to bring a 0 down. 40 goes into 200 5 times. 40 times 5 is 200. So 200 minus 200, this is going to equal 0. So as a decimal, we have 0.075. And if I've moved 2 places to the right, so this is going to be 7.5%. Let's do a proportion. 3 over 40 equals x over 100. We're going to cross multiply. So 3 times 100 equals 40 times x. So 300 equals 40x. Divide by 40, divide by 40. So we have here 40 and then 300. 40 goes into 300 7 times. 40 times 7 is 280. 300 minus 280 is 20. 40 goes into 20. It doesn't go, so I'm going to add decimal, decimal, and 0. I'm going to bring down my 0 here. 40 goes into 200 now 5 times. 40 times 5 is 200. 200 minus 200 is going to equal 0. So x equals 7.5. This is just going to be 7.5% because your x here is 7.5. Let's look at method number 3. So if I do 3 over 40, what number times 40 is going to give me 100? And that's going to be the number 2.5. If I multiply my bottom by 2.5, I'm going to multiply the top by 2.5. And 2.5 times 3, this is going to give us 7.5. So your percent here is going to be 7.5% as well. So let's look at the fraction 147 over 100. So I'm going to write my 100 on the outside and then 147 on the inside. 100 goes into 147 one time. 100 times 1 is going to be 100. 147 minus 100 is going to equal 47. I'm going to bring down my decimal, and your 0. And I'm going to bring this 0 down. 100 goes into 474 times. 100 times 4 is 400. 470 minus 400 is 70. I'm going to bring down my 0 because 100 doesn't go into 70. However, 100 does go into 700 7 times. 100 times 7 is 700. 700 minus 700 is going to equal 0. So as a decimal, we have 1.47. If I move 2 decimal places to the right, I am going to get, so 1, 2, it's going to be right here. So your percent is going to be 147%. Now let's do a proportion. So 147 over 100 equals x over 100. We're going to cross multiply. So 147 times 100 equals x times 100. 147 times 100 is 14,700, which equals 100x. I'm going to divide by 100. Divide by 100. My 100s here are going to cancel out. So x equals 147. And notice here your zeros do cancel out. So you have 147 divided by 1. And this is going to be 147%. And let's look at method 3. So if we do 147 over 100, what number times 100 is going to give me 100? And that's going to be the number 1. So if I multiply the bottom by 1, I'm going to multiply the top by 1. 147 times 1 equals 147. So as a percent, you're going to get 147%. Let's try one more example. So let's say we had the fraction 1 over 200. I'm going to put my 200 on the outside and 1 is on the inside. 200 goes into 1, it doesn't go, it's too small. So I'm going to do decimal, 0. 200 goes into 10, it still doesn't go, it's too small. What about 200 goes into 100? 200 goes into 100, it still doesn't go, it's too small. What about 200 goes into 1000 now? 200 goes into 1000 5 times. So 200 times 5 is 1000. 1000 minus 1000 is going to equal 0. So your decimal is 0.005. And if I were to move 2 decimal places to the right, so we have 1, 2, it's going to put me right here in between the 0 and 5. So your percent is going to be 0.5%. So let's do a proportion. So if I have 1 over 200 equals x over 100, I'm going to cross multiply. So we have 1 times 100 equals 200 times x. So 1 times 100, this is 100, equals 200x. Divide both sides by 200. So 200 divided by 100. 200 does not go into 100, so I'm going to add decimal, and 0. What about 200 goes into 1000 now? 200 goes into 1000 5 times. So 200 times 5 is 1000. 1000 minus 1000 is going to equal 0. So x equals 0.5. And if I were to turn this into a percent, this is going to be 0.5%. So now let's look at method number 3. So what number times 200 is going to equal 100? And that's going to be 0.5. I'm going to multiply the top by 0.5 as well. So 1 times 0.5, which is 50%, this is going to equal 0.5. And 0.5 over 100, this is going to give us our 0.5%. Okay, remember 0.5 is the same as 0.50%, and this is your 50%. All right, so that is all for today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.